It's quite possible, though, for leaders to be leaders for bad things, not just good things. So we've had plenty of leaders in history who led people astray and led them into difficulties and caused all kinds of difficulty, but they were talented leaders, but for ends that were not satisfactory. So one has to distinguish between what might be thought of as moral leadership, which would be leadership for good purposes, and then immoral leadership, which would be leadership that essentially causes human suffering in some form or another. So if you think of somebody like a Mugabe, who has taken one of the richest countries in Africa and squandered its assets and its people and so on, caused untold suffering, well, there'd be a leader whose legacy then was very unfruitful and evil in many ways. A lot of harm done to people through Mugabe. But on the other hand, if you look at leaders that have made good things happen, in some ways I think of Nelson Mandela. His personal example of peaceful leadership meant that in the overturning of apartheid in the end, it was a relatively peaceful transformation from apartheid to a post-apartheid world. Whereas had he been a leader interested in vengeance, then there would have been tit for tat. So all the suffering that Africans had had under white Africans might have been responded to by punishing white South Africans and so on. But there was largely very little of that bloodbath that many had feared, and a lot of this goes to people like Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela for essentially saying, well, we have to forgive and forget, and they had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Some of this is old history, but it's a good historical example because you could see that they were in favor of a peaceful transformation from power rather than a violent or vengeful transformation. So in this sense, the qualities of leadership can be benign and positive, or they can be malevolent in various ways. For instance, I'd have to assess George Bush and his 8 years in the American presidency as very destructive to the American economy, the world economy, to the creating of two wars, the wars that have cost the American public trillions of dollars, but have cost the Iraqis, for instance, probably close to 1 million lives for a war that was kind of cooked up for false reasons. So I can't imagine that history would judge that leadership as benign. I'd say it was malevolent in what it had done.